Emily. How's it going today?
It's going well. Good to see you, Julia.
Good to see you. So glad we could spend a few minutes together. Thanks. I'm here today with Emily Goodstein. Emily is the founder and CEO of Greater Good Strategy. You guys do online fundraising and digital strategy for nonprofits. And right? And I had the great pleasure of working with you as a coaching client this year. And I was so excited to spend a few minutes talking with you about what that journey was like, where it took you, and what's happening today. So do you mind if I have you rewind to back when you first decided to reach out?
Life before my one-on-one coaching with Julia Pimsler? Yes, of course. So I think that I was sort of out on my own. I was a one-woman shop. I had a handful of great clients that I like to work with, but I kept sort of feeling like there was only so much more I could do, only so many hours in the day. And I was starting to think, I would love to collaborate with a team. Not sure if I want to do that. And in some ways, I just kind of felt like I'd plateaued. And so
I remember on our first call, you talked about wanting to serve more clients and that you love your work so much. That's one of the things I adore about you. Tell me a little bit about that part.
Sure. I do love working. So if anyone knows me, they know that I spend a good amount of the time working. And I really wanted to sort of make the most difference. So I kept thinking, am I serving this organization by being the one woman that wears all the hats? So that means that I'm writing the copy and doing the graphic design and thinking about the strategy and maintaining the relationship and all those things. And I really wasn't sure how to kind of like break beyond that. And I was really comfortable in that. Like I was, again, kind of like, I was eking a little, the business was growing a little by little by little, but at the end of the day, there was, I was scared and there's only so many more things I could do like in 1 week.
Was there some tipping point where you were like, okay, that's it. Now I think I really need to reach out and get some help? Or what made you pull the trigger?
That's a good question. So it was a handful of things. So since we started working together, I got engaged.
I know, it's so awesome.
I knew that at some point sort of down the line, I would need to take a little time off just to literally get married. Like maybe I would take a full week off to have my wedding, right? And every time I would think about kind of how to operationalize that, I just got really nervous. Like, who's going to take care of my clients? And you can't just kind of like stop all these projects for a full week. And what if, my wedding plans don't coincide with, we're getting
my clients' deadlines.
And also, because we do online fundraising, the end of the year, Q4 is like, that's kind of prime time for most of our clients. And I thought we would be getting married toward the end of the year. So I kind of felt this like a little bit of anxiety on that front. And then it actually ended up being a conversation with a friend who said, have you considered working with a coach to help you really just change your business model? So I started doing some Googling and asking around, and that's how we got connected.
And I still remember that first conversation because you were like pumped, but you were also a little like, I don't know, like a little skeptical. Do you remember that?
Yes. Well, I think that there was also something about how on my calendar, I was sort of like, I'll interview a handful of coaches and then I'll kind of like, take my time and think about the decision for another 6 months before making and that was kind of like what I thought was going to happen in my head. But then when we got on the phone, I said, well, we're planning to get married and I don't know what to do about the timeline. And, and you were ready to go. So I feel like I talked to a handful of folks that had also worked with you after our first call. And then that was really what helped me decide to take the plunge. And then ever since, it's just been such a fun time, Julia.
Well, I've loved working with you, and it's been so fun to see how much the company's grown, and I want to get there in a minute. But first, can you tell me a little bit what you remember we did in the early days? And, was everything super easy, or was some of it like a little uncomfortable?
Well, so I think that the answer was that it was uncomfortable. I think that as a small business owner, we're so used to like doing the business, right? Every day we're kind of in the business and working with clients. So to take even an hour away to talk about like a plan for the business or, how I could better work with the clients that that I'm collaborating with, that felt like a scary thing to literally block the time off on the calendar, let alone spend the time prepping for that first meeting. So at the beginning, my first thought was, I don't know how this is going to help anyone. I don't know where this is going. We spent a lot of time talking about non-work related things. So you wanted to know at the beginning about like, well, what prompted this, what prompted your outreach? And then also let's talk about some of those goals for the next 3 to 5 years. And I distinctly remember you saying, close your eyes and tell me, if you achieved everything you wanted to achieve, what would your life look like? Which in some ways as an entrepreneur, you want to do that. Like you want to think big. And then in other ways as an entrepreneur, you just kind of want to like shy away from any future planning and just think like, I'm just going to pay the mortgage. It's going to be fine.
I pay the bills this month. I remember everything you're describing. And I also remember asking you to stop doing one thing. Do you remember what you were doing that I said, put that on pause?
I think you told me to stop billing hourly. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, there was that, and there was creating the website because you were off and running. Remember that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So truth be told, I tried to launch 3 websites before we started working together. So it was this great cycle. I would like get to a point where I thought, okay, gotta have a website. Who am I, this entrepreneur with no website? So I would hire a web designer.
And digital strategist. We'll just throw that in there. I love it. The cobbler's kids has the worst shoes.
Totally. No shoes. Literally, not even the worst shoes.
No shoes, right. No shoes.
You're barefoot. So, and I think that's what made it harder because I know what's involved in doing a good job on a website. I know what's involved in having a great digital strategy, and it's what we do every day. So I wanted to make sure that, we're putting our best practices into play in the work that we're doing for ourselves, and that was paralyzing. So I had gotten into this great cycle of hiring a web designer and talking about what I did and didn't need, and with really no sort of vision for how the website would help us grow or how it would maintain it or what the content would be. I just was trying to like finish the project as fast as possible, and then I would get like 90% done and then never bring it live.
Well, one of the things I love about working with you is you are so coachable, and I really mean that as the highest compliment because you had to have a lot of trust too, right? To say, okay, I'm going to stop all that and it will get figured out. And we had to kind of go up to 10,000 feet and create a strategy, right? And then the website fell out of that and was pretty different, I think, than what you imagined doing initially.
Well, completely. So, I mean, this gets into some of the suggestions that you made, which, one of the kind of main changes that we made was kind of formalizing the concept of a team. So taking that example of, I'd like to take a week off for my wedding or, maybe take a break at some point. That was going to need other people to help me. And I already was working with a handful of other women that we just hadn't kind of like, I wasn't overtly talking about that. I hadn't really formalized that. And so one of the first suggestions you made was change the name of the business and, do away with, I was operating under Emily Goodstein Consulting, which was great when I wanted to be a little smaller and work directly with every single, I wanted to do everything. I still work with all the clients that we have as part of the Greater Good family, but I also have some amazing women that I get to work with, and everyone sort of does the thing that they are the best at. So once you recommended changing the name and building more of an overt team, it helped me start to sort of imagine what life would look like to say, wow, why don't we just have a graphic designer do the graphics? Or,
right, I don't have to be the one to do everything. And then also people who hire your company don't always expect you to show up, right? There's that benefit too.
Totally. So, this thinking about this week that I'll be getting married, the wedding, just to clarify, is only a day, but I imagine there'll be some time.
I hope you'll take a full week for the wedding.
That I might be prepping and then resting. But, now I think about, okay, there's going to be this week and all of the client projects can continue going, especially end of year fundraising, prep and implementation. Even if I'm literally like recovering from, all the dancing at my wedding.
I hope you will be. I hope that'll take you out a full week recovering from all the dancing at your wedding. But so then concretely speaking, so we redid the strategy. We decided different website, different name of the company, how to productize your services, right? We spent a lot of time on that. I would be curious to hear, what was something I asked you to do that it was like uncomfortable, like hard?
Oh, there's a long list, Julia. Well,
you hit that well.
This actually relates to what you said about trust though, right? So there was a handful of, the first thing you asked me to do actually before we talked about the team and the business name change was, hey, make a list of all of your services and we're going to lop off the ones that are not a good fit for you anymore. And I actually had, I'm also a photographer and I was sort of kind of trying to like co-market this like photography.
I remember that. I remember when I first looked at you online, I was so confused. I was like, wait, she does digital strategy, does photography. There's a book about, you see,
and
all cool stuff, by the way.
The truth is, all those things still exist, but I think, in an effort to sort of streamline the way that the consulting business exists, I needed to make it a little clearer about what we actually do as a consulting firm. So I decided to remove the photography services and the book listing from the sort of larger web design. Those two things actually live separately, other places. But when somebody asks me at a party, what do you do? I can very easily say, I run a digital agency, Greater Good Strategy, here's my card, as opposed to like, I'm self-employed and I, do a lot of things. And
right. And if photography happens to come up, right, you can say, I also do this. I mean, no one's one-dimensional, but this allows you to get business. I mean, of course, when you come to $1 Million Women for coaching, right, we're going to focus on how do we make you more money. So I am going to take you there. Thank you for sharing that. Was there one more thing you wanted to share? I was going
to say that you, I think you really pushed on the concretizing of the service offerings, which was actually one of the harder things. And the thing I learned from that process is it actually took us, like once we sort of created these little buckets of services, it actually took going out into the world and sort of experiencing how people reacted to them and what questions we got and how much we sold to really like fine tune them. And so in the context of the coaching, that was really hard because that was the thing that was sort of, well, that's tied to my livelihood. Like you're actually going to change the way I pay my mortgage or feed myself.
Yeah, and tell you to turn away business too while we're at it. Right?
Yeah.
You had to turn some people away in order to focus on these few products that you're now killing it with.
I did. So I think that was the hardest thing because as an initial solopreneur, the message that I kind of was telling myself was, we're just going to always like be out there. We're going to sell whatever we can. And we're just going to like
do everything for everyone all the time.
I like the organization and I like the people we should be working with them.
Right. No, that was a big, big shift that you made. And again, you did a beautiful job of trusting. I do remember there were several times I was like, you're going to love this in a few months. So I'm glad we got there. So tell us what life is like after having rebranded the company, not your name, and having these products and services.
Oh my goodness. Well, the business part of my life is great. So we rebranded the business. We got engaged 2 days before I rebranded the business.
I know that was a big week for you. That was a very big week. A lot of social media went up that week. It was awesome.
I know it was a lot of interactions. And then we went out of the country for a week, which was a planned vacation. And I already had this team that I'd been sort of working to cultivate, and they were able to really run a lot of the projects that we were in the middle of doing. So that was like some immediate gratification. But this is a little sad, but unfortunately, in December, at the end of December, both of my parents-in-law, or my future parents-in-law, got really sick right around the same time. And I was actually I had to stop work for almost 2 weeks at the beginning of the year, almost completely. And the ability to literally send a text and say, we're dealing with a double whammy family crisis. I need you to jump in. And literally, like the team stepped up more than, I might start crying right now, more than I thought that I would ever need to ask them to step up. And they did so generously and so seamlessly in such a gracious way to really help me during some of the scariest weeks of what we were dealing with. So since then,
you had to like leave your home and go to another state and be in the hospital 24/7. I mean, it was like, who could have anticipated that?
Yeah. The truth is that there's no way that anyone could actually plan for that. And I imagine that if I was, still out on my own, my clients would have been understanding. But the beauty of this is that not only were my clients understanding, but they didn't have to stop a lot of the work that they were doing because we had the support of the team. So, and the truth is, since we've been home, the stuff with my parents-in-law, is not over. And I still often need to, hey, I need you to sit in on this meeting. Can you brief me later? I'm not going to be able to make it. Or we're dealing with a call from the oncologist. I need to take this. And there's something about knowing that it's not, the people have not only hired me. The thing that actually was really sealed it for me was when I was in Pennsylvania at the beginning of the year, dealing with what was going on. And I got an email from somebody who I had spoken to in December about possibly working together. And she said, I know you have a lot going on right now. We'd like to go ahead and sign a contract. Let me know if you want me to connect with one of your team members to do that. And I realized at that point that it wasn't actually a negative. This person was viewing it as like, I know you're dealing with what you have to deal with. And, this organization still needs your help. So, and I know you've chosen really fantastic people to be on your team. So just tell me who to talk to.
I love that. That's awesome. That must have felt so good to realize I can be here, helping my family, and the company's still up and running and can serve our clients.
Yeah, it was a
You made that happen. I just helped you map it out, but you're the one who made it happen. So
thank you for saying that. I mean, I would also say a lot of the credit goes to the amazing team and the work to cultivate those people, which are,
yes.
this work.
Well, and you created an environment where people want to work. And I think what a lot of people can't quite see, and so thank you for sharing your story, is that you can go from being one person doing everything, right? The entrepreneur, as I like to call her, the entrepreneur with 8 arms doing everything, to someone who is hiring great people, inspiring them to do their best work, and helping them have great lives too, right? I know you work with a lot of women. We have a lot of women on our team. We provide flexibility. I know you provide that kind of flexibility too. It becomes just like a huge win-win, doesn't it?
I mean, there's what I always say to the consultants that I work with is, at the end of the day, I did this by myself for a long time, and I made a decision not to. And so the best thing I can do is actually create an environment where we can all support each other and collaborate. And we actually are in a situation now where if I'll be emailing, how Gmail does the predictive text, I'll write, we're all in this, and Gmail will complete together. Because I read that so often. Of course your kid is sick, you have to go pick him up at daycare.
No.
Of course, literally that's the most important thing. And
I love that. That's so great, because with everyone doing their part, no one has to be fully responsible.
And we're always
someone you can pass the ball to.
Exactly. I feel like we're always sort of behind the scenes. Okay, got this, do you have this? And the truth is that there are no times when everything is perfect, right? There will always be somebody who needs something in someone's life, or somebody needs to take a day off.
Life still happens, right? I mean, I do think sometimes, as type A women who love our work, and I know I'm speaking for a lot of us now, right? We're not the only 2 on the planet, that, we sometimes think that we can get away with just everything's going to go fine, but life never goes all fine, right? I've got 2 kids. One of them, needs me to go to a class trip or something. And it's like, if you don't have that team, then you're just fresh out of luck. I would be curious, Emily, what did this translate to in terms of dollars and cents?
It translated
better now than it was when you were the entrepreneur? Talk about a leading question.
Yeah, totally. It is better now. I definitely wanted to make sure that we also had some dollars to finance part of the wedding party that we're talking about. At the end of the day, we work with nonprofit organizations. So the best thing for us was to be able to offer something that was priced, that was affordable for our nonprofit clients, but also allowed me to properly compensate the team I worked with and make sure that the business was profitable for me as well. And that's certainly happening. We're month 4 of operating in this new model. So far, so good. I'm taking sort of Q1 as kind of like a test quarter. I will say you really pushed me to think about those projections, actually overtly think about what I needed the business to bring in and really solidify a pricing structure. So I was able to do research on pricing for what nonprofit organizations usually charge, or what nonprofit organizations usually pay for people who are in-house in this role, which was very helpful for me to kind of figure out what the pricing might look like. And yeah, you're right. So far, so good. And from a sort of money growth perspective, definitely.
Awesome. And, I love how you were able to raise your prices and also be able to have products that are a fit with a certain segment of the market that you knew was out there. You'd had 1 or 2 clients who were doing that.
Yeah.
And then you thought, well, wait, can I actually get more clients like this? And I think, to me, watching you, that's been one of the greatest successes, is seeing you sort of set that vision really high and then go after it. And it's happening. I love getting those emails from you. You're like, find another one.
The Instagram direct message. The thing I think about that was really helpful was you kept repeating this concept of put yourself in the shoes of that organization. You are sitting across the table from that person. They are not a marketer. This is not a person that wants to bother with this work. The best thing you can do is provide a service that takes this off of their plates so they don't have to worry about it anymore. And one thing that I had seen in a lot of other consulting relationships was consultants that were sort of this is the scope of work that we are going to do, and that's where it stops. And I, as a person who has few boundaries, that never worked for me, right? If I can do something to help a client and they ask me to do it and it seems like it will move the needle on their fundraising effort, I will always do it. And so we designed a product so that we can really be embedded in the organization. It's this sort of chief marketing officer model where you are outsourcing that CMO role to us. And so we're embedded on the team. We meet with you at least once a week. And it's basically like you've hired C-level staff people to think strategically and implementation staff people to actually be the hands-on keyboard. So I have to.
That's what they actually wanted and needed. And I do think, part of this evolution, and this is for a lot of the women in our community, is really saying, okay, you know what? I'm the expert. And I do know what to do better than the people who are hiring me. And so I'm going to create the perfect package for them. And why do I know how to create the perfect package? Because I've worked with all these companies like them. They're so relieved, when you walk in and say, hey, I know what you need, and here's what it is. And they are willing to pay for it, right? Often it's on us as the entrepreneurs to not be so comfortable, and you've gotten so much more comfortable, and I love seeing it, saying, hey, I've got this great solution. This is what it's worth. And you find you don't get as much pushback as you would have thought, right?
Well, I mean, completely. And when I say, listen, like we are embedded on your team, like you have us as extensions of your staff in this ongoing relationship. So we're going to become experts on the content that you're putting out, and we're going to learn the dynamics of your team, and we're going to learn the cycles of your organization from a calendar perspective. And you don't have to hire full-time staff people. That, I think, in many ways was sort of the best the best sort of model. And it was because of the two organizations that we had that in many ways had asked us to sort of design that product for them. So we could sort of easily test out what it would look like. We knew what was involved. I actually spent a little bit of time looking at like what we offered before and what we offer now. And I think it's really helpful to be able to say to organizations like, you used to ask us to do implementation work and we used to not be able to, and now we can. We heard you asking for this service.
Yeah, it came from then, really, this evolution. You didn't sit down and say, oh, what other things could we possibly sell to them, right? It was like, these are the needs we kept hearing over and over again. All I helped you do was, package it up and think about how to charge for it.
You also said at one point that I think was really powerful, like at the end of the day, when you work with nonprofit organizations, you have to be inspired by their mission, right? So at one point I was saying, well, I don't know if this organization, if the mission is going to need this. And you said, don't you want to help this mission, whatever mission it was, don't you want to help more children access education? That is the mission of this organization. And it sort of changed a little bit of the way that I was thinking about it. I was sort of coming from a place of, well, I know what they can afford and I know what I can do.
It's sort of scarcity mentality, right? Yep. Like if I charge too much, I'm going to upset the universe.
Well, also, I kept seeing the things we were creating, not like we would get someone 75% of the way there and we would say, okay, here's the strategy, or like, here are recommendations.
Right, and then they wouldn't do it. And that was so frustrating for you.
Exactly. And that was when we started seeing, okay, great. We can actually help literally raise more money. I can move the needle on the way that these organizations are functioning in the world if we offer this other 25% service. And that, I think, was that was a huge change that was hard for me to kind of come to terms with, but I was able, once I could reframe from like a mission perspective, that was the part that was really helpful.
That's really helpful to share. And I know that you're someone who's not actually motivated by money. You're motivated by helping to make social change in the world. So I think once I reframed it as, well, this is going to allow them to reach more people, which is absolutely true, right? It's not about, oh, I want to charge $1,000 more. It's like, if we don't get them to buy the total solution, then they're not going to serve their population at the highest level. So that's one of the things I've loved about working with you. I feel like we've been able to help impact a lot of people through you creating these full service kind of,
totally
packages.
I would also say, Julia, there's, again, as a person who's driven sort of by social justice and beyond sort of like the social values of the work we're doing, it's also the people, right? So we work in technology, but I always say technology is about people. And so I really didn't want to get to a situation where I wasn't like working in the whole, like with the whole person. I didn't want to just be focused on this one sliver of like, okay, well, you just needed this, so I'm going to check the box. You just did this. I wanted to work with the whole person or the whole team or the whole organization. And as an extroverted person who loves working with people, I now also have my own team. So it sort of fulfilled that like need for colleagues, as well as, the want to help organizations actually move the needle on the things that they're doing.
So what would you say to someone who was in the position that you were in? It was just like 6 months ago, right? That you were solopreneur, trying to do it all yourself. And, nothing wrong with that, right? But what would you say to someone who's in that situation now and also sort of thinking, I don't know, maybe there's another way of doing this?
Well, speaking of social justice, I think there's actually something inherent in women earning the same amount of money that men earn, right? So a lot of my money was actually, let's close the gender pay gap, right? Yes. I work really hard. I'm really good at what I do. I have an amazing network, and I get to work with organizations that have amazing missions. So why shouldn't I earn the same amount that my male counterparts earn? So to me, that was actually one of the biggest things that kind of like, I think it's hard when, Julia, your program is called $1 Million Women. It's hard as a non-profiteer to think like, oh, I'm going to be totally bottom line focused and I'm going to talk about like what I'm making. But at the end of the day, actually me charging what I'm worth and helping to close the gender pay gap is a radical act.
And by the way, is allowing you right now to take care of your family, right? Which is a very female empowerment thing, right? So many of us have children, aging parents. You're not the first or last person, right? Who's going to need to take off several weeks and sometimes several months, right? To care for people.
That's true. And I think creating an environment where, again, my team has the flexibility to like, those are, in my opinion, those are radical acts that allow us to close that pay gap. So for me, it was actually, that was one of the things that really helped to sort of motivate me to sort of say, okay, great, let's do this. The other thing I think was trust, right? Everyone is different, but for me, we had this conversation and I immediately knew, okay, if I want to go big, Julia's the person that's going to do it. This is not going to be a slow process. The one-on-one coaching option that I chose was like the accountability, hold my feet to the fire. We're going to move through this process. There was homework, there was rule, this is a very sort of structured process. And that was I know I needed that, because if it was any different model, I would say, oh, I'll do the homework tomorrow. I have client things I have to focus on. But I knew it was going to be you and me in the Zoom meeting. And I wanted to get what I was investing, and get out of it.
You showed up 180% every time. So really everything that you made happen in your company and in your life, you made it happen. I just provided the infrastructure and had the joy of watching you just seize this moment. So, I'm really so proud of you, Emily. And it's such a joy to watch you building out the business and creating the dream life that you described to me when we talked that very first time on the phone. I remember you said you wanted to renovate your kitchen. Remember that?
Yes, we're working on that too.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, it's great seeing these things starting to come into fruition. So yeah, maybe just finish that thought and then we'll wrap up about, so what if a woman is watching right now who's like, well, I love my business and I'm good at what I do. And, how do I know if I'm ready? Because I know a lot of women feel like I might someday be ready to, go big or start making more money. It doesn't have to be $1 million, right? But to just make more money. What would you say?
I think the answer is that you're ready now. So if you're watching this, you're ready now. If you've gotten to this point in the recording, you're definitely ready now. I think the other thing is this is not for work of patient people, right? This is for somebody that literally wants to make an investment and make a change in the immediate future. So if you're not, if you got distracted and you haven't watched this part of the video, or you're kind of like on the fence, who knows, whatever. If there's any inkling of like, hey, let me get on the phone or reach out, just know that you can probably be in a new place. Your business can be completely ready to scale and kind of retooled, ready to scale for me, it was about 3 to 4 months. And if you had said that to me in that first phone call, I would have thought, great, I'm not a patient person. Let's do it right now. So for those that are not patient, I guess that's my best message. If you're not patient, that's the time to call Julie.
And you did start making those changes right away though. And, we did see that payoff pretty quickly. So I think you were a model coaching client in that you had that trust. And you also were able to see, the long-term payoff of saying no to some clients, restructuring the business, and finding a way to really be the leader, right? And not the doer in your business. And that's going to pay off not just this year, but next year, for the next 10 years, for when you guys have your first little one, because I know that's in the cards. And I'm so excited for you to see what the future will bring. So thanks, Emily, for sharing all these thoughts with me today. And just keep making the amazing impact you are in the world at Greater Good and with your fabulous team.
Thanks so much, Julia. This was a treat. I'm glad we got a chance to talk.
Me too. Such fun. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Emily.
Bye.
Bye.